Yes.
That we met with a friend of mine from Brazil.
Yes.
Sobreira. Hello, Anita.
Hi, we're in here. How are you? Okay.
Great.
Good to see you. Good to see you too.
And you brought all your stuff.
Yeah.
You brought everything.
That's how she
Brought
is.
all my stuff.
You brought your stuff.
Yeah, I got my stuff.
You brought your headphones.
Now wearing shoes.
I recognize those shoes. Yes, I recognize them. They look like shoes.
I had the Horário de Brasília today. I felt like I could turn and talk to him. I felt like he was around me and probably was. I feel like today especially he was really in the house. He felt his presence. Yes. Yes. It happens.
So what we could do is just whoever's here, we could just sit.
Right, right, and then we'll do the other screen and give it to him.
Well, we're gonna go out to dinner. Oh, I thought we were having a potluck. No. Oh, I made this beautiful tomato casserole.
Well, we're gonna eat it.
We'll eat it.
Why don't we eat it?
Why don't we eat it? Chris?
Let's have it as a first spice.
We don't have much time,
We
because we need to be out of it.
have to
We
be out
have
of
to have
here
a 7:15.
7:15 on the dot.
Ooh,
And I really rushed to get here. I was hitting 80.
oh my gosh. Hey, I've been hitting 80 for a year now.
Oh, man.
But actually, we could snip some paper.
Do you want some of it?
What is it?
Paper plates in there. Yeah, I mean, it's scalloped tomatoes, with bread and cheese. Oh, yum. Okay. Yeah,
Why would we stop?
and cheese.
Thank you. Size 36 versus what we do the previous one.
Yeah.
What is it? We can't use it. Well, I think I see some here. This one.
I can grab from our stuff. I don't want to actually be in here because they're getting ready for a. Yeah,
So we can, let's go back.
yeah. Have you got spoons and stuff? Yes, I do. I will go get them. Oh, thank you. It looks really good. What did she do there? Yeah. I don't know. It's really pretty.
Well, I think she forgot to come.
Wow. It looks really nice. I can't shower, except maybe once a week.
Yes.
So, because of my leg.
Yeah,
So-
so we can just sit up here, but that's
So,
Still have only 2 people.
how many people are there?
1, 2, really right.
So anyway, what was I gonna say?
No?
I thought it was potluck.
No, well, that's all right, it would have been. How many of us do we have so far? 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.
But we can go, do you remember there was a really, really wonderful Mexican restaurant just on the corner there?
Quimata?
No, it's really refined. And then the restaurant became direct, and then they opened a new, and then they sold, and then they opened one on State Line.
Cacao.
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 Okay, was my first was good, then was direct when the guy who was the chef left. He just opened a new restaurant.
We just. so
Called
we sit
Stapa.
there and watch.
Okay. I made scalloped tomatoes. But I thought it was potluck.
We're
It's
gonna,
nice and hot.
we're gonna steal it from you.
Hey, please.
You need it, she's getting
We need
a she's got it.
Okay. Scalloped tomatoes? Yeah. I forget that. No?
We had scalloped
Can you
potatoes.
smell it? Don't smell
I muted you just in case. That way we don't have.
Yeah,
it. It smells wonderful.
Just
yeah,
funny
I
that
should be muted.
I wish I could do that in real life.
Well, you guess what? You can. But you ask for it, you get it.
Get a button to. What's going on?
I'm sorry.
Because it's tomatoes and there's oregano in there.
Do I missing a button?
No, no, no.
Not too much.
Are you having?
But there's basil. Pepper. I didn't put any salt.
Good work.
There's enough salt.
You know I persecute you.
I know, I do.
And I persecute people over all sorts of things.
Oh, are we late? Do we need to start?
Well,
Yeah, but even
nobody
our
else
speaker,
is on
even
here.
our speaker is not in.
Joyce is gonna make it. Because,
not?
no, because the dog she's babysitting is sick. There's Roseanne coming in.
Yeah, Roseanne was gonna come in.
Oh, I see somebody else. Yeah, Roseanne.
We're
Yeah.
facing north. That's north. That's, no.
Oh, it's Tapa. The place is right here, man. It's right here. It's on.
What
It's
is
on, it's on 95th.
Uh-huh. Oh, it's Tapa.
Yeah. It's next to the one that is like the breakfast place. Like, you know, oh no, that's not it. It's in the place for the.
Wait, what is this other one?
Here is Home Depot, I think.
Oh, Home Depot. Okay, so
No,
that's.
oh no, I'm sorry. Here is Jack's Stack.
Okay, yeah, so.
Right there, yeah. Right there.
So did they take the place of Red Robin?
No, I think they got the place of that horrible breakfast place.
Oh. But it's near.
First
Jack's-
Watch.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Bob Barad is with us. Look at that. He's here. Hello, Bob Barad. And me. Hello. Hello
Hi,
over here.
I'm John.
No, yeah, they can see you. So wait, we have some people here. The Jews are eating. What time is it in Lisbon?
11:03. We're
11:03.
just
Wait, I
trying
need to make you
figure out-
louder. Hang in there.
We need to get a speaker on, but not the microphone.
Okay, so wait, let me try to get this.
No.
I can, you know what? I can mute myself.
That's good, isn't it? Well, it seems a little blurry. I don't know.
No, you're not doing it. Yeah, you've got several people going.
Right, good. Now I need Roseanne to mute her or I'll mute her. Wait, I'm muted. Good.
Don't you dare.
Okay, we are here.
Oh, look.
Let's, you know, we're supposed to have a potluck, and then the band will change, and somebody brought food, so obviously we have to eat. Anyway, fellow Israelites, that's a kaver, as we would say in Nasa'i. You're muted, Bob and me. Okay. Well, okay, fellow Israelites and sundry people. These lovely people here are not, they're living in sin. Well, they're not really living in sin because they live in different countries. And they really are living in sin because even though they claim to be actually married, they really are not because they haven't had a tough, real religious, Jewish, and we're trying to remember the name of the religion. Conrio, right?
Tenrikyo.
Enrico, sorry, religion, because, so Bob, this guy here, is a Jew from New York, and he, who is from Brazil, is from the southern part of Brazil.
Jacques, when you wander around, we can't hear you.
Okay, well, I'm not really worth listening much, as you well know, but basically, and let me stay here then. So basically what I'm saying is, I met Bob and me because they wanted me to do their wedding, and I still have high hopes of doing it. But in the meanwhile, because where me is from is a town that's near Londrina, where we have a congregation there in Brazil. Now, with much travail because of the pandemic, the wedding hasn't happened yet, but it will. And they are right now in Lisbon, on the way to São Paulo, because now her family is living there. It's a far more civilized place. And we welcome them, and you did not come here to listen to me talk. You came to here listen them talk. So they have really cool jobs, the kind of job, they're lucky because I think they get paid to do something that most people probably would like to look at you, looking like a real Jew, Bob. They get paid to do something that most people would probably would pay to do that job. And I'll let you talk. Okay, and then I'll focus on you.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. So I can tell you a bit more of the story.
Yes.
So Mia and I both work for the United Nations. We work for different agencies. I work for the World Health. No, I don't. I work for the World Food Program, which is a part of the UN. And Mia works for the World Health Organization, which is another part of the United Nations. And we actually met when I was assigned to go to Guinea-Bissau, which is a small country on the coast of West Africa, just below Senegal. And I arrived there, and 3 days later, I was required to go to my security briefing, which is a official thing that you do every time you arrive in a new country. I've had many UN duty stations since I joined WFP in 1997. Most of them in Africa, a lot of them in West Africa. So this one was special. I arrived in Guinea-Bissau, and 3 days later, I went to my security briefing, and I met Mia, who was taking up actually her first UN assignment with the World Health Organization. But Mia has also a really fascinating background. She was originally a surgical nurse, and then she went into public health, and she did some work in Mozambique, and then we met, and then we didn't decide to get married right away. We, in fact, we didn't even start dating for about 5 or 6 months, but we had more than that. We had some friends in common, and 8 months. Okay, took a while. And but then we discovered each other and decided that we liked spending time together. So we had we moved in together. We had that was the living in sin part. And I went to Brazil and I met her family. And then in October of last year, on the 23rd of October, we were officially married in the eyes of the state of Pennsylvania. It was originally our plan to have a wedding in Brazil because Mia has a very interesting background. She's a preacher's kid, but her religion is, being Jewish, I'm from one of the oldest surviving religions, but she's, her religion has only been surviving for about how long?
200 years.
About 200 years. It's a new religion. And it's Tenrikyo. I'd never heard of it before, but it was really a thrill to meet somebody who was from a religious group that had less adherents than my own. I think they're number 17 or number 18 on the world religions list, if you study it. But it's lovely people, wonderful family. And she chose not to go into the priesthood, but she has in the family, her brother, father, and her grandfather were all Tenrikyo, and her brother is still a Tenrikyo. Her father is retired. So I don't know. I mean, we didn't really prepare anything too formal. I wanted to talk about our UN careers, and the other connection is, okay, just to complete the loop on the circle that Rabbi started, is that we were thinking about, this must have been like 2 years ago, I guess. 2 years ago, we were thinking, we should get married, and we should have a wedding that would blend together our traditions. And we should definitely have it in at her place where she grew up, because she grew up on this really beautiful compound in a town called Asahi. Asahi means rising sun in Japanese. And it's actually 20 minutes from a town called Londrina. And so we thought, if I was going to marry a preacher's kid, I needed to kind of bring something equivalent, something powerful to this event, so that we could have a little bit of balance between our traditions. So we got online, we Googled, and I looked for like Brazilian Jews, particularly ones that might be from not far. And we found that there was a congregation in Londrina that had been somehow supported by a rabbi in Kansas who thought it would be good to help people to discover and experience their Judaism in the state of Paraná. So we thought that sounded pretty cool. So we got in touch with this rabbi, and that is your rabbi, and had a discussion with him about our plans to have a family wedding in October 2020. And yeah, because of COVID, we didn't have the family wedding, but we still wanted to have the legal side of it covered. It's some advantages in the UN to being a married couple if you want to spend more time together. It was very interesting to me because when she was my girlfriend, nobody was that concerned about how much time we spent together. But the minute we married, everybody was really concerned. So I guess that's one of the advantages of being married, is that there's a general social recognition that it's good to spend time together when you're married. So we had that year together in Guinea-Bissau, and I moved. The UN moves us around. In a UN career as an international civil servant, typically you're expected to move around to different countries. You don't just go to one country. So I've been to many in my career. And unfortunately, the time came for me to leave Guinea-Bissau, which is a small country, a Portuguese-speaking country, a lovely, lovely place on the coast of Africa. Mia is still there, but I live in Nigeria. So I went from one of the smallest countries in West Africa to the big powerhouse of West Africa, which is Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa, and very large population. So to give you an example, Guinea-Bissau is about 1.8 million people, and Nigeria is over 200 million people. In fact, last year, WFP provided food assistance to 1.8 million people in Nigeria, which would represent the entire population of Guinea-Bissau. Anyway, we're still hoping that the rabbi will be able to help us with our wedding, but now Mia's parents have moved from Asahi. They're now staying in São Paulo. And so apparently that's even a cooler place to introduce people to the Jewish experience in Brazil. And we booked the rabbi. I understood there was some competition, but we managed to book him for the 22nd of October, 22. So it's a nice number, 10/22. So easy to remember, and that's our target now. And we're COVID permitting. We'll have a lovely blending of our traditions with my family coming from USA to Brazil and nobody being particularly worried about that. We were going to do it this year also. We were going to try to do it on the 23rd of October. I wanted to do it on the 23rd of October because I thought if we could do it on the same date as our Pennsylvania wedding, then we wouldn't have to remember 2 anniversaries. But given that the Jewish day starts at sundown, and we're going to probably do Tenrikyo in the afternoon and then do Jewish in the evening. 22nd of October, 22 sounds like a good number. So sounds like a lucky number. So that's what we're going to try to do. I listened to some of your Friday night service, just a little bit of it. Rabbis invited me to join you more often, and I would like to do that. There is Jewish life in Africa. I do attend synagogue regularly in Abuja, It may not surprise you that Chabad has arrived in Nigeria. They're quite good at arriving everywhere. Yeah, and a young couple, they're actually originally from France. A young couple went to, I guess it's been maybe almost 8 years now, but they established really a Jewish community out of what had been just a lot of disorganized engineering companies and some embassy people and some people like myself who are Jewish and working in the humanitarian community. It's quite nice. We have every Sunday, I have my shul buddy who picks me up and we go to Chabad and we do our tefillin and I wear my kippah. Yeah, I carry my kippah with me because I'm a kippah carrying Jew. That's how I identify my religious affiliation. A kippah carrying Jew. So not a card carrying, but kippah carrying. And that's been really a lovely part of my life in Nigeria. In terms of my work, we have you heard that there's a big crisis in Nigeria in the Northeast. There's been a war going on for over 10 years now. And there's been a lot of people who have been displaced by that fighting. And as a result, there's a lot of people that normally would get their livelihoods from farming, but can't access the land right now. And in order to ensure that they can go on and that they have food to eat, the World Food Program is working with the Nigerian government to provide assistance for food assistance. Some of it is, a lot of it is targeted to women and children. We have programs in nutrition as well to ensure that infants get a good diet. Last year, COVID-19 became very much the issue as well. Nigeria is one of the first countries to go for a lockdown. They figured out after a while that wasn't really sustainable. A lot of people work on a daily wage, so to have them locked down meant that they had no source of income. And that was even more threatening than the virus itself. So they've eased the lockdown. We don't really see too much mask wearing in Africa. We see I was about to share something else. We don't see too much, and also vaccination rates are very low. Africa's been pretty lucky so far. We've had, I think, maybe 2 waves of 3 now, yeah. But she's the expert, really, being a World Health Organization person. So I covered, those are the main things I wanted to talk about. But I'm open to any kind of questions people have about life in Africa, about life in the UN, about and we have experts on Brazil. If you have questions about New Jersey and Pennsylvania, I have some familiarity with these places too.
I want to object to the fact that you neglected to mention the greatest service I was going to do to you was to escort your family from New York all the way to Acai, and to escort a large group of Jews, elderly Jews, would have been like herding cats. But I was up for the task. I can go on record.
But that's still in the future. That's what we're going to do in 22. It's still on the books, right?
But to schlep them, even not from New York to São Paulo, then to Londrina. I mean, I was dreading the concept. But anyway, what I would like to know is what do you do and what Mia does, and tell
What
us
do you
about
really do?
Yeah, what do you do? Why
What do you really do?
Yeah,
I know where you are. You have a title. What do you do?
Yes.
I'll start with myself. My title is I'm a head of partnerships and OIM. OIM stands for Operational Information Management, which is where we do a lot of the reporting work. So we have, we're always doing performance monitoring. We have an entire team that does what's called, used to be called vulnerability assessment mapping. And now there are research assessment and monitoring and evaluation team. So everything we do, we set targets for what we expect to achieve. And there we have tools for monitoring the indicators that come out of that. And what my team does that's involved in the reporting is that they provide a monthly set of reports, country briefs, situation reports, and we put those out. We also have a meeting with all of our, WFP relies on donations. Most of the donations come from government, but some of them are coming from private sector now. And in order to maintain that kind of participation, we have to keep up constant relationship management with our donors. And that's what my job is. I work with a team of 4 other people. We're going to be hiring a couple more. And our job is to make sure that the people that are paying our bills are getting the results that we're promising and well informed. So we have a monthly meeting where we meet with them. And since COVID, it's been all online. So part of my work on a monthly basis is to gather together all that information. And then we have to do project proposals on a regular basis to get the money that pays for everything. The United States is the #1 donor to the World Food Program in Nigeria. It represents about at least 60% of our funds. We also get a lot of support from the United Kingdom. A little bit less now because some of the policies there are evolving. And our 3rd largest donor is the European Union, which is also very interested in emergencies. Right now, because of all of the things that are going on elsewhere in the world, it's becoming harder and harder. Afghanistan is really a major crisis, as is Yemen, and as is Syria, and as is South Sudan. In the UN system, we call these major emergencies level 3 emergencies, and Northeast Nigeria is one of those 5. So the world is not running short on emergencies and places where there's a famine risk. And that means that the resources are getting spread thinner and thinner, and we have to be more and more creative in order to find the resources. And we have to explain the value that people are getting from those efforts.
So besides, you're in the middle of this, you see what the need is, you try to get the resources. Who gets somebody the food? Who doesn't?
In the World Food Program, in WFP, we work a lot with local partners, and so it's international and local NGOs that in many cases will be doing the actual food delivery all the way to the beneficiaries and their communities. We do a lot of vetting to ensure that they're up to the job, but we have 2 ways of delivering food assistance. One is actual food; it's physical food, which is handed over. That's giving more and more ground nowadays to use of cash, where we have identified vendors in the communities where they have a certain basket of food that they are able to sell. And so the beneficiaries will receive, sometimes they'll receive money on a card that looks like a credit card, and they're able to go to those retailers and redeem their entitlements for food that they can take home to their families. So it's a whole bunch of stakeholders those are also considered partners, but they're not the partners that I'm responsible for. We have other people who work in our programming unit that are responsible for developing those relationships with the organizations on the ground, mostly NGOs, as I was saying, but also the government itself has its own.
I guess one of the things that bothered me was that the displaced people, basically, they're not sitting in their community ready to go down to the grocery store with your credit card to get help, but somebody's got to import a whole bunch of stuff into a place where it wasn't there, don't they?
There are where it's possible to work through commercial networks. That's the preferred way to do it, because that also reinforces the local economy. In fact, also, it might surprise you to know that in Nigeria, WFP sources 70% of the food that we distribute is actually grown in Nigeria, and that number is increasing. The 30% consists of some specialized nutritious foods that aren't quite up to the specifications that we need because infant feeding is quite sensitive. So for those specialized nutritious foods, we still do get some imported food, but most of it we buy locally. And in the case of these vendors, vendors will actually come to the internally displaced camp, the IDPs we call them, internally displaced persons. So those vendors that have been approved for this program will actually come with their merchandise and make it available to the people who are who may be in the camps, or they may be in a host community. But we try to use the local market system wherever it's feasible. So that's about what we do.
And I would like to know what Mia does, besides looking gorgeous, sitting next to you and smiling.
Me too. I would also like to know.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. I worked with health organization as a health planning advisor, which means I work with the health system strengthening. And when we talk about health system, we have what we call the 6 building blocks of the health system, which is health. It's governance first, health financing, human resources for health, health information, service delivery, medicines, and health technology. So this is the programs that I work with. And my main job is to support the local government in those.
Support the local government.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So WHO is a technical organization, is a technical agency. We don't have much money as WFP, but our core function is to support the government to develop the policies, the plans, the national plans, and everything that is decided during the World Health Assembly. And the World Health Assembly is a gathering of all the ministers of health of the countries that are member states of the World Health Organization, and they decide the policies, they decide what they want to implement in the countries. They vote, and we as a secretariat, we support the countries to implement what they decided during the assembly. So sometimes people, they don't know really what is our mandate, and then it's a bit confusing. We don't define the policies. Of course, we have a lot of partners, researchers, scientists that we work together to find the best way to manage, health during the crisis, during the emergencies, find better vaccines, better medicines for treat diseases. And then we recommend countries about the best way to do, but we don't oblige. Countries are recommended, then they can follow the recommendations. And depends on the countries, like US, developed countries, they have their own policy. But developing countries sometimes need some guidance, some basic guidance to follow. So we set some guidance, and then they can adapt to their own reality, their own, how can I say, each government, they have their own sovereignty to define their policy, but sometimes they need some guidance as well when the health system is very fragile. When the country is fragile, like Guinea-Bissau, we need also to give the guidance and try to support the country to implement, the guidance as they can. So this is basically what I do. So I sit with the government, sit with the Ministry of Health, with the minister, with the general directors, and we think together, and I'll try to find a way to implement the policies, the guidelines, It's quite challenging in a country that is very unstable. Is politically unstable since January last year. We had 4 ministers of health. When the government changed all the ministers and also changed the directors. So the institutional memory also start to fade, and then people don't remember the all the commitments they made, so they don't also hand over to the next person. It has been quite challenging work, but anyway, we keep working, we keep trying to, each new person we do again, we talk again, and we keep moving. This is
What is your specific training?
Sorry?
What is your specific training?
My background, I'm nurse. I nurse. I did master in public health and my PhD in international health.
I have a question. Bob, you said that vaccination rates for COVID in Nigeria are low. Is that because you don't have vaccine available, or because people
Are stupid like you.
Yeah, I was trying not to say that, but I just wondered why the vaccination rate is low, and are there efforts to change that?
I think probably Nigeria, Australia is not that different from the rest of Africa, and I think WHO is a better authority on this. So can you answer that one?
Okay. The problem of the low rate of vaccination is because Africa received the vaccines later. So we started vaccination very, very later than other countries. Usually countries started in January, some countries started even last year, but we received our first jab in June. So we started very, very late the vaccination program. Also, we were depending on donations from what we call the COVAX facility. This is part of this one WHO initiative, but requested developed countries to donate vaccines through this COVAX facility to developing countries. So it's through this donation that the countries are receiving the vaccination. And also, it's very difficult to reach people. For instance, when we go to the rural area, we go to places that it's hard to reach, and then you have a vaccine that you need to do 2 shots. So adherence to the vaccination is difficult. Rumors, the fake news, infodemics is very, very difficult to manage in a place that you have, not only one language, but you have 30, 40, sometimes 300 different languages in one country, like Nigeria. My country is very small. Guinea-Bissau is 1.8 million inhabitants. We have 27 different languages. So to reach those people and to explain them in their own language and to have adherence to the vaccine is very difficult. Cold chain is also another challenge. For instance, we couldn't receive Moderna or Pfizer because of the cold chain. In Africa, mostly we don't have fridge in the rural areas. We
Wi-Fi froze.
on fridge done by solar panels. So to keep the vaccines available and usable, it's very, very challenging to reach the communities in the place that you don't have electricity as well. So many different challenges to have vaccines available to the community, not only in the capital but also in the rural areas. So sometimes you need to the roads are not good as well. So many challenges to reach in terms of access of the roads, access in terms of communication, and access, different forms of access, and also traditions, beliefs. People sometimes, when the infodemic spreads, the fake news spreads, is very, very harmful. And then one strategy just can false because of, somebody said something, and then people believe, oh, because if I have the vaccine, I will die in 2 years. People says, oh, because I will die in 2 years, and then they don't get. And to change this mentality, to change the behavior is very, very difficult.
Misinformation spreads really quickly.
Now, I recall that WHO got all balled up with our previous Washington administration. As I recall, our previous president, the former guy, basically withdrew funding from the WHO and also declared them as like an enemy of the people. Now, that was, I'm not sure what the basis of it was, but I'm wondering, is there within WHO a culture problem also? For example, the book Premonition, which I suppose most people have heard of, was the story of how the CDC in the US, from its culture of passivity, was found way behind on this COVID-19 business, right? You're familiar with that? Well, at any rate, with the WHO, are there problems that we need to lobby for to get improved within WHO, or our influence on it?
That's a tough question.
This is a tough question.
But I do know that Joe Biden signed on the first day in office, reinstated the funding to WHO.
Oh yeah, sure, I know that.
Yeah, and I mean, generally, the previous administration was looking for anybody to blame for everything except for themselves. So,
well, I just wondered, is there any problem within the WHO that we have come to recognize was present within the CDC, not just the administration, but the years in which the CDC developed its way of working? Are there things that need to be fixed about the WHO, besides, of course, India prohibiting export of all vaccines to the compendium for quite some time? I mean, there was some external problems. Are there any internal things that, of course, you can't speak publicly about but how can we help influence the WHO to do better?
Well, as explained before, WHO is not a regulatory agency. We are a technical agency. We develop, guidelines. However, each country has the sovereignty to define their own policy. We cannot oblige. We cannot, just ban, or we are not rulers. So it's very difficult, to when people know, many countries are blaming WHO of this, of that. But in the end, when we found that COVID was it was threatening to the public health. First, it was announced that is a public health, it was an emergency of public health concern, and then pandemic was also declared. But this is also followed by many discussions with the specialists, many scientists worldwide. This is not only the agencies deciding or defining, but this is a pool of scientists that think together and then, inform people. This is not the agency per se, but is a pool of scientists together and to help WHO to find a better way to, and then we have our director that announced in the end, but it's not himself, that person with the power to decide things. We are a technical agency. We are not, we don't have the mandate, just block or just to deny or, to ban the countries or force countries, because we just give guidance. And the countries are free to follow or not follow because they have their own sovereignty. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did, and I wanted to bring that up just to, of course, embarrass you badly, but after all, I wanted to enter into the competition between World Food Program and WHO, and then throw in CDC and.
I just say you're not obligated to invite them to the wedding.
Right. But I'm
in fact, I prefer you don't. And this is the temple president, by the way.
Yeah, but CDC is also part of, because all this, CDC is one government agency. So every country, they have their own agency.
Right.
And they have their own policies. They can be more developed than others, so they have their own policy. So
to use the U.S. as an example, because you're mentioning CDC, the U.S. has its own policy. We're here in Portugal right now. Today we went to because before we could travel from Nigeria and Guinea-Bissau, we both needed to go and get RT-PCR tests, which and then I had to fill in both a form. I went to by way of London, because from Abuja we don't have direct flights to Lisbon. So one of the advantages of being a former Portuguese colony is that from Guinea-Bissau you can fly directly to Lisbon, but not from Nigeria. From Nigeria I flew directly to London. A lot of the connections between African countries, economically and also socially and culturally, they continue to be linked to what was the former colonizer. So I guess both of our travel routes are examples of that. The best way for me to get to Lisbon was through Heathrow Airport. And to get to Heathrow Airport, I had to fill in a couple different forms, something called a personal locator form, which the UK is requiring. Just to know that I passed through the airport, I have to give them all kinds of information, including when I was last tested for COVID and whether I was negative. And then I had to repeat the same process for Portugal. And we're going to be going to Brazil through a discount airline that tomorrow is flying from Madrid. So we have to do the same thing for Spain. So I think European countries are quite particular in having a great deal of control over the people coming in and out through the airports. I do think that there's a lot of focus on airports right now. And since we have a pandemic, by definition, COVID-19 is everywhere. Back in July, everybody was very concerned about Delta variant and its spread, but Delta variant didn't seem to be concerned about our concerns because it spread everywhere anyway. At one point, Nigeria implemented what was called a red list. So they were banning they were trying to ban travel to South Africa, Brazil, Turkey, and India, because those were places back in June that were having outbreaks of COVID-19. But governments are not so nimble. So we decided to take a holiday. We had a wonderful trip to Turkey in July. I was warned, and when I got back to Nigeria, the policy in Nigeria probably won't have been updated. Sometimes because we carry around UN passports, we call them UN laissez-passer. Sometimes we think we can do things that other people can't. In this particular case, when I presented my UN laissez-passer on re-entering Nigeria, they said, "Oh, we're definitely sending you to quarantine," because my organization actually had said that declared that we would be compliant and that we would do exactly what was required. So I had to go to a government-approved quarantine facility, which turned out to be a government-owned hotel that, you know, really increased its occupancy rate considerably because of this policy. But everybody really tried. I was really impressed by everybody really trying to make the best sense out of a policy that probably didn't really make a lot of sense. But I mean, people are trying. They want to do the right thing, and so did I. So I stayed in that facility for 8 days. It wasn't too bad. Yeah, we got a special government rate. Stayed in there, but you know, at the same time, we were asked to go down and have our buffet breakfast. And as I was going down to the breakfast, I had to pass by the evangelical church gathering that was in the room next door, and there really was no barrier between the quarantine passengers and the people who were celebrating Sunday services. So I just kind of held my breath, you know, when I was passing them on the stairs. But I mean, this is just the world right now. I mean, I think also we were told, I read in going to UK that there was, and also to Portugal, there was some issue about whether people from Nigeria would be welcome. Yeah. I think that there's a certain xenophobia, and I think disease unleashes more, intensifies that. It's always easy to blame an outsider. Jews don't need to have that explained to them. They know that from our own history, not they, we. In fact, one story that I would share about that is that my family, back in March, we celebrated 100 years in America. We actually have the original documents, the passports that my family used to come over from Eastern Europe. They arrived at Ellis Island on the 3rd of March, 1921. And they had their own story of traveling with a small infant. That infant didn't survive. That infant actually died at the public hospital on Ellis Island. A few months ago, I think we're about over 60 of us got together, and all of us who would not be alive if it weren't for the sacrifice and that group made. There were about 7 of them that came over on that boat. And they came over on the SS Kroonland that sailed from Antwerp, Belgium. I recently read a book. I really recommend it if you're interested in the topic. It's called The Guarded Gate. It documents the kind of pseudoscience that was going on at the time, what was called the eugenics movement, or eugenics they considered to be a science at the time. And based on the findings of how some white people were better than other white people, they passed laws in 1921 and then subsequently even more strict laws, which practically barred immigration from among Italians and Jews from Eastern Europe for 4 decades. The rest of my family, some of my family remained behind in what was the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union collapsed, they came over. That was in the 1990s. We've managed to keep contact over those 70 years, but it's a very long time that that opportunity for immigration stopped. So that I tell the story because to me it really resonates with what we're going through today, and this among these 60 people that were online remembering that passage and that time, there were many that were my nieces and nephews, the younger generation, and it was really an opportunity to share the stories. And I always think of the second question at Passover, which reminds and I'm the youngest in my family, so it was my job for a couple decades to do the 4 questions until there was another generation that could pick it up. But the second question has to do with, well, the Rabbi will correct me if I get it wrong. I'm just remembering the answer better than the question, but I think it's anyway, why is it different from other nights, and why do we lean, and all these kinds of things. So the second answer is that in every generation, it's our duty to look upon ourselves as if we personally left Egypt. And that message really resonates for me in my work, because there continue to be people who really need to leave their homes, not by their choice, but because it's their survival depends on it. And they have hopes for their children and for future generations, and they don't want to perish because of somebody's genocidal tendencies or whatever kind of trouble that they have in their country. So the stories that you hear now about family separations, about immigration, it's hard for me to hear these stories, because what I value about American traditions is more about our diversity and our acceptance and how that's made America a strong country. And today there's lots of disinformation about not just about diseases, but also about people and the realities, and people manipulate these stories for political reasons. So just wanted to share that too, because it's something that I think is kind of important. When I went to visit with Mia's family in Brazil, in southern Brazil, it was kind of amazing because I felt that her family came over, I think, in the 1930s, and they were seeking a better life because things were pretty tough in Japan at that time, and Brazil offered an opportunity to be a pioneer. I think they cleared some of the jungle in order to do some of the planting. There's even a museum in her hometown that was set up to commemorate the Japanese immigration into Brazil. And this town was founded by Japanese pioneers. So it's a universal story. I think none of us are that far from needing this kind of help that some of the people coming to the United States are needing today. I was really impressed. I understand that you're really keen on supporting some of the people coming in from Afghanistan. I think that's wonderful. And yeah, I'm. It's part of how I was raised, and it's part of how I identify as a Jew to see that our families are not just the people that we're biologically tied to. It's also a bigger story for humanity. And I feel very privileged to work for the UN because it actually allows me to live that repairing the world story every day. So
you are brilliant. Both of you are brilliant and insightful, as I expected you would be, but even more so. We are guests in this church. They told us we have to be out by 7:15. So I have like 15 minutes, 20 minutes to
let's do Havdalah.
I have 20 minutes to make Havdalah mode, so they need some more. So, and then anyway, and I truly appreciate you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, and really appreciate meeting all of you.
I'm
coming to Kansas someday.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
And I'm
Or
glad
Missouri, or whatever state you're in. I'm not sure, but it's I know it's city.
But I'm glad we're taping this because you did say some really cool stuff. I'm quite impressed. Anyway,
Thank you.
Let's have the wine table.
So this is
Our ancestors took words from scripture to voice their thanks to God, who sustains us from week to week. Within their ancient words of praise, we find prayers for life and health in the week to come. May their faith be ours as well, as we make their prayers our own. הנה לישועתי אפתח ולא אפחד, כי עזיבה זמרתיה, והיא לי לישועה, ושפתם מים וששום ממעייני הישועה, ואדוני ישועה לעמך ברכתך סלע, אדוני צבאות עמנו משגב לנו אלוהי יעקב סלע, אדוני צבאות אשרי אדם בוטח בך, אדוני יושיע מלך יעננו ויום קוראנו, ליהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה וששון ועיקר. כן תהיה לנו כוס ישועות עשה ובשם אדוני אקרא. Change hands. The Kiddush gladdens our hearts. In this gladness, we look beyond the ugliness and misery that they face our world. May our eyes always be open to notice beauty and to the blessings yet to be recognized. May we be ever mindful of our promise to help repair the brokenness of our world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. We praise eternal God, creator of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. The added soul that Shabbat is said to confer is leaving us now. The fragrance of these spices lift our spirits at the moment of its departure. It reminds us that the next 6 days also will pass and Shabbat will return. Their bouquet make us yearn with thankful hearts for the sweetness of rest, the fragrance of growing things. We're grateful for the dream of a world healed from pain, pure and whole, as on the first Shabbat, when God rested from the work of having made our world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei minei besamim. We praise eternal God, creator of the universe, who creates the world spices. Smell. Smell here. Smell here. Pass it around. Shabbat now departs, and the workday begins as we behold the flame. We thank God for the energy and talents by which we turn earth raw materials into things of use and beauty. The candle's double wick reminds us that all qualities are paired. We have the power to create many different fires, some useful, others harmful. May we never use our powers to do harm to our world. May the fires we kindle be holy ones, that we may bring light and warmth to all humanity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei meorei ha'esh.
Did I drink too soon?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Sorry. We praise eternal God, creator of the universe, creator of light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, המבדיל בין קודש לחול, בין אור לחושך, בין המשביעי לששת ימי המעשה. Baruch atah Adonai, המבדיל בין קודש לחול. We praise eternal God, creator of the universe, who enables us to distinguish the commonplace from the sacred. We create light and darkness, the seventh day of rest and the 6 days of labor. We praise you, God, who calls us to separate the ordinary from the sacred. Thank you, God, for this day of Shabbat that now concludes, for the blessings of peace and joy, bodily rest, and spiritual refreshment. We're thankful. May Shabbat's influence accompany us into the new week, sanctifying all our activities and inspiring us to work with spirits renewed. May the day come when harmony and peace shall be embraced by all people.
I drink again. I'm trying to get this at the right time.
You just doused the candle.
Yes. המבדיל בין קודש לחול, חטאותינו ימחול, זרענו וכספנו ירבה ירבה כחול ככוכבים בלילה. A good week, a week of peace, may gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace, may gladness reign and joy increase. And since Elijah the prophet is associated with the Messianic era, they that will always be Shabbat, but probably even Orthodox people will be able to turn their TV on, because otherwise, what fun would that be? We have a song about Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Akilati. במהרה בימינו יבוא אלינו עם משיח בן דוד, עם משיח בן דוד. אליהו הנביא, אליהו התשבי, אליהו, אליהו, אליהו הקהילתי. And back in São Paulo, they would sing a good evoca, but here we sing Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov, a good week, a week of peace, may gladness reign and joy increase, etc. So I don't know how the music goes because I just know how a good evoca went back when I was growing up. That's it. Questions, complaints, remarks, anybody? Mia, tem alguma pergunta? Tem uma dúvida?
Não, nenhuma dúvida.
It's Haftarah, not Haftarah.
Yes.
What?
Shavua Tov.
Shavuot Tov, again, thank you for participating, for enlightening us. I want to thank I don't know who King Domino is, but whoever it is, more than welcome. Oh, it's Joyce.
Joyce
Good.
is King Domino, huh?
Look at that. And then Sally, I hope you're feeling better. We still want to talk to you. and the Wickmans are not joining us. So it's wonderful because that way we get to go to Ixtapa because they may not want to go. We have a great Mexican restaurant when you guys come here to town. So we're working on it.
We're definitely coming. Is it Missouri or is it Kansas? I always get confused. It's very confusing.
We live in Overland Park, Kansas. With synagogue, we are in Overland Park, Kansas. There's Kansas City, Missouri.
The
Like
state of
a mile away.
Kansas. Okay, the state,
We are in the state of Kansas, yeah, but a mile away, it's Missouri.
okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you again.
For inviting us.
Sorry, say again?
Thank you so much for inviting us.
It's our pleasure. Have a nice flight tomorrow. And, oh, tell me, what neighborhood in São Paulo are your parents living in?
Saúde.
Saúde, legal. Excellent. They have subway.
Yeah.
Good. That's easy to get to. Good. Okay, again, thank you, people.
Thank you.
Shavuot Friday, we're here for services. And then next month, I think we have a potluck for Hanukkah. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it.
Thank you.
All the service over. Thank you.
Good talk.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.